Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today, my name is Nicolas Liakas, and I will do poetry readings for the Greek Students Association, U of T. Today's poet, unlike last week's, was George Seferis. George Seferis, when he won the Nobel Prize for Poetry, said, "I belong to a small country, a rocky promontory on the Mediterranean. It has nothing to distinguish it but the efforts of its people, the sea, the light of the sun. It is a small country, but its tradition is immense and has been handed down through the centuries without interruption. The Greek language has never ceased to be spoken. It has undergone the changes that all living things experience, but there has never been a gap. This tradition is characterized by love of the human. Justice is its norm. In the tightly organized classical tragedies, the man who exceeds his measure is punished by the Erinyes. And this norm of justice holds even in the realm of nature." This is George Seferis, Nobel Prize winning poet. He was born in Smyrna, Asia Minor, in 1900. At the age of 22, he was kicked out, as most other Greeks were, in 1922. When his family moved to Paris in 1918, Seferis studied law at the University of Paris and became interested in literature. He returned to Athens in 1925 and was admitted to the Royal Greek Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the following year. His wide travels provide the backdrop and color for much of Seferis' writing, which is filled with the themes of alienation, wandering, death. He died September 20th, 1971, under the Junta of Greece in Athens. First poem, Denial. On the secret seashore, white like a pigeon, we thirsted at noon, but the water was blackish. The golden sand rewrote her name, but the sea breeze blew, and the writing vanished. With what spirit, what heart, with what desire and passion we lived our life? Mistake. So we changed our life. My senior. I have seen in the night the sharp peak of the mountain, seen the plain beyond flooded with the light of an invisible moon. Seen, turned my head, black stones huddled and my life taut as a cloud. Beginning and end, the final moment, my hands. Sink, whoever raises the great story. I've raised these stones as long as I was able, and I've loved these stones as long as I was able. These stones, my fate, wounded by my own soul, tortured by my own shirt, condemned by my own gods, these stones. I know that they don't know, but I, who followed so many times the path from killer to victim, from victim to punishment, from punishment to the next murder, groping the inexhaustible purple that night of the return when the furies began whistling in the messenger grass. I've seen snakes crossed with vipers knotted over the evil generation of our fate. Voices out of stone, out of sleep, deeper here where the world darkens, memory of toil, rooted in the rhythms, beaten upon the earth by feet forgotten. Bodies sunk into the foundations of the other time, naked, eyes fixed on a point that you can't make out, much as you want to. The soul, struggling to become your own soul. Not even the silence is not ours. Here, where the millstones have stopped turning. In the sea caves. In the sea caves, there's a thirst, there's a love, there's an ecstasy. All hard like shells. You can hold them in your palm in the sea caves. For the whole days I gazed into your eyes, and I didn't know, you did not know me. Interval of joy. We were happy all that morning. Oh God, how happy. First the stones, the leaves, and the flowers shone, and then the sun. A huge sun. All thorns, but so very high in the heavens. A nymph was gathering our cares and hanging them on trees. A forest of Judas trees, cupids and satyrs were singing and playing, and rosy limbs could be glimpsed in black laurel, the flesh of young children. We were happy all that morning. The abyss was closed well, on which the tender foot of a young fawn stamped. Do you remember its laughter? How happy we were! And Then, clouds, rain, damp earth. You stopped laughing, then you reclined in the hut and opened your large eyes and gazed on the archangel wielding a fiery sword. I cannot explain it, you said. I cannot explain it. I find people impossible to understand. However much you may play with colors, they are all black. Just a little more. Just a little more, and we shall see the almond trees in blossom, the marble shining in the sun, the sea, the curling waves. Just a little more. Let us rise just a little higher. Our mind is a virgin forest of killed friends. Our mind is a virgin forest of killed friends. And if I talk to you with fairy tales and parables, it is because you listen to it more sweetly. And you can't talk of horror because it's alive. Because it doesn't speak. And it doesn't move. It drips the day. It drips on sleep like a pain reminding of evils. To speak of heroes, Nicolas, who left with open wounds from hospital, may give talk of heroes when that night he was dragging his foot in a blacked out city. Screaming, feeling our pain. In the dark we go, in the dark we move. Heroes move in the dark. Our sun. Our sun, this sun, was mine and yours. We shared it. Suffering behind the golden silk. Who's dying? A woman beating her dry breast cried out, "Cowards! They've taken my children and torn them to shreds. You've killed them!" Gazing at the fireflies at dusk with a strange look, lost in blind night. The blood was drying on a hand that a tree made green. The warrior was asleep, clutching the lance that cast light against his side. It was ours, this sun. We saw nothing behind the gold embroidery. Then the messengers came, dirty and breathless, stuttering unintelligible words. 20 days and nights on the barren earth with thorns, only 20 days and nights, feeling the bellies of horses bleeding, and not a moment's break to drink rainwater. You told them to rest first and then to speak. The light, it dazzled. They died saying, "We don't have time." Touching some rays of sun, you forgot that no one rests. A woman howled. "Cowards, like a dog in the night. Once she would have been beautiful, like you, with the wet mouth, veins alive beneath the skin with love. This sun is ours. You kept all of it. You wouldn't follow me. And it was then I found about these things behind gold, the silk. We don't have time. The messengers were right." Santorini. Stoop if you can to the dark sea, forgetting the sound of a flute to naked feet that trod in your sleep, and the other sunken life. Write if you can on your last shell the day, the name, the place, and cast it into the sink of the sea. The king of Asina. All morning long we looked around the citadel, starting from the shaded side, there where the sea, green and without luster, breast of a slain peacock, receives us like time without an opening it. Veins of rock drop down from high above, twisted vines, naked, many-branched, coming alive at the water's touch, while the eye following them, struggling to escape. The tiresome rocking, losing strength continually. On the sunny side, a long, empty beach, and the light striking diamonds on the huge walls. No living thing, the wild dove's gone. And the king of a scene, whom we've been trying to find for 2 years now, unknown, forgotten by all, even by Homer. Only one word in the Iliad, and that uncertain. Thrown here like the gold burial mast, you touched it. Remember its sound, hollow in the light like a dry jar in dug earth. The same sound that our oars made in the sea. The king of a scene, a void under the mask, everywhere with us, under a name, a scene. And his children's statues and his desires, the fluttering of birds and the wind and the gaps between his thoughts and his ships anchored in a vanishing port. Under the mask, a void. Behind the large eyes, the curved lips, the curls carved in relief on the gold cover of our existence. A dark spot that you see traveling like a fish in the dawn calm of the sea. King of a scene. A void everywhere with us, and the bird that flew away last winter with broken wing, a boat of life, and the young woman who left to play, the dog teeth of summer. The soul that sought the lower world, squeaking in the country like large planes swept. along by the torrent of the sun with ancient monuments and contemporary arrow. And the poor lingers, looking at the stone, and asks himself, does there really exist among these ruined lines? Edges, points, hollows, and curves? Does there really exist? Here, where one meets path of rain, wind, and ruin, does there exist the movement of the face, the shape, the tenderness of those who shrunk so strangely in our lives, those who remember the shadows of the wave, thoughts with the sea's boundlessness? Or perhaps no. Nothing is left but the weight, the nostalgia for the weight of a living existence, there where we now remain, unsubstantial, bending like the branches of a terrible willow tree, heaped in permanent despair while the yellow current slowly carries us down, rushes up, rooted in our mud. Image of a form that the sentence to an everlasting bitterness is turned to stone. The poet, a void. Shield bearer, the sun climbed wearing, from the depths of the cave, a startled bat hit the light as an arrow hits a shield. Would that we were the king of a scene. We've been searching for so carefully on this Acropolis, sometimes touching with our fingers, his touch upon the stone. Thank you very much. That was Greek poetry for this week.